Alzheimer's versus Dementia, a comprehensive study. 1. Introduction. Alzheimer's disease and dementia are two terms frequently used interchangeably, but they refer to distinct conditions. Understanding the difference between the two, as well as their individual symptoms, causes, and treatments, is vital for anyone impacted by these diseases. In this study, we will explore both conditions in depth, providing a comprehensive look into their diagnosis, treatment options, research, and more. 2. Understanding dementia. Dementia is an umbrella term used to describe a range of cognitive impairments, such as memory loss, reasoning difficulties, and impaired judgment. Dementia can affect a person's daily life and their ability to interact with others. Though it is not a specific disease, it is a collection of symptoms that are caused by disorders affecting the brain. 2.1 Types of dementia. There are several types of dementia, each with its own set of characteristics, causes, and effects. The most common types include 1. Vascular dementia. Caused by reduced blood flow to the brain, typically due to strokes or blood vessel problems, it can lead to sudden or gradual cognitive decline. 2. Lewy body dementia, characterized by the buildup of abnormal proteins in the brain, causing memory loss, hallucinations, and movement difficulties. 3. Frontotemporal dementia affects the frontal and temporal lobes of the brain, often resulting in personality changes, difficulty with speech, and impaired decision-making. 4. Mixed dementia, a combination of different types of dementia, such as Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, which can complicate diagnosis and treatment. 2.2 Causes and risk factors. The causes of dementia vary depending on the type. Common risk factors include age, genetics, and lifestyle factors. For example, conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol may increase the risk of vascular dementia. Additionally, a family history of certain forms of dementia may increase one's likelihood of developing the condition. 2.3 Early symptoms. Dementia often begins with subtle symptoms, which can be difficult to differentiate from normal aging. Common early signs include forgetfulness, difficulty organizing thoughts, trouble managing daily tasks, and changes in mood or behavior. 3. Understanding Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurological disorder that causes brain cells to degenerate and die. It is the most common form of dementia, accounting for up to 70% of all cases. The disease is characterized by memory loss, confusion, and changes in behavior, which gradually worsen over time. Stages of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease is commonly broken down into several stages, each with its own set of symptoms and challenges. 1. Early stage. Mild memory loss becomes noticeable, particularly for recent events. People may have difficulty finding the right words or remembering names. 2. Middle stage. Moderate. People may require assistance with daily activities, such as dressing or preparing meals. Confusion becomes more prominent. Late stage. Severe. Individuals lose the ability to communicate and become fully dependent on others for care. Physical abilities decline, and many patients experience difficulty swallowing or walking. Causes and risk factors. Alzheimer's disease is caused by the accumulation of abnormal proteins, such as beta-amyloid plaques and tau tangles, in the brain. These proteins disrupt communication between brain cells, leading to cell death and memory loss. While the exact cause is not fully understood, genetics and age are major risk factors. Family history. The presence of the APOE4 gene and older age increase the likelihood of developing Alzheimer's. Symptoms and diagnosis. The symptoms of Alzheimer's include gradual memory loss, difficulty concentrating, confusion, and changes in personality or behavior. Diagnosis typically involves a combination of cognitive tests, medical history review, and brain imaging techniques like MRI and CT scans. How Alzheimer's progresses. As Alzheimer's progresses, the symptoms worsen, leading to significant cognitive and functional decline. In the final stages, individuals may lose the ability to recognize loved ones, become nonverbal, and require round-the-clock care. The disease's progression can vary, but it generally spans several years. 4. Scientific studies on Alzheimer's and dementia. Research on Alzheimer's and dementia continues to evolve, with new discoveries helping to shape our understanding of these conditions. From genetic studies to advances in brain imaging, science is providing more insight into the underlying causes and potential treatments for these diseases. Key research findings. Some groundbreaking studies have revealed key factors contributing to Alzheimer's and dementia, including the roles of beta-amyloid plaques and tau tangles in Alzheimer's. Other studies focus on the role of genetics, such as the discovery of the APOE gene, which is linked to an increased risk of Alzheimer's. The story of Margaret, a caregiver's perspective. Introduction. Margaret had always been a caregiver at heart. As a young woman, she worked as a nurse, and after her retirement, she continued to volunteer at local health clinics. However, nothing prepared her for the emotional and physical toll of caring for her mother, Helen, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The early signs. Helen, a lively woman in her early 70s, had always been sharp-minded. Margaret never imagined that her mother, who had a long history of managing her finances and household with precision, would one day struggle to remember simple tasks. It started slowly, with Helen forgetting where she placed her keys or mixing up the days of the week. But as time went on, the memory lapses became more frequent, and Helen began repeating the same stories and questions. Margaret, initially dismissing the changes as just normal aging, noticed the decline becoming more significant. Helen would often forget the names of her grandchildren and became increasingly confused about her surroundings. After a series of doctor visits and tests, Helen was officially diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Challenges of caregiving. The news of the diagnosis hit Margaret hard. She felt overwhelmed by the prospect of losing her mother in such a gradual, painful way. She knew that Alzheimer's was a progressive disease, meaning that her mother's cognitive abilities would continue to decline. As a primary caregiver, Margaret had to learn how to adapt to her mother's changing needs. Helen could no longer handle tasks like cooking, managing her medications, or even dressing herself. Margaret became her full-time caregiver, coordinating doctor visits, managing medications, and ensuring that Helen's daily needs were met. The challenges were not just physical but emotional. Margaret watched as her mother, once vibrant and independent, lost pieces of herself. Helen would have moments where she seemed to forget that Margaret was her daughter, calling her by her sister's name or thinking that Margaret was a stranger. This emotional detachment was one of the hardest things for Margaret to bear, finding moments of connection. Despite the difficulty, Margaret cherished the small moments of connection she shared with her mother. Even as Helen's memory faded, their bond remained strong. Sometimes, Helen would recall events from her past or ask Margaret about old family stories. These moments, though fleeting, reminded Margaret that her mother was still there. One particular moment stood out for Margaret. While Helen was no longer able to read books or remember new information, she still enjoyed music. Margaret would play Helen's favorite songs, old ballads from their youth, and they would sit together, swaying gently to the music. During these moments, Helen would smile, her eyes lighting up with recognition. The impact on the family. Margaret's role as caregiver also put a strain on her relationship with her family. Her husband, John, was supportive but didn't fully understand the daily toll of caregiving. Margaret often found herself frustrated and lonely as she had to prioritize her mother's needs over her own. It wasn't just her immediate family that felt the impact. Margaret's siblings, who lived in other parts of the country, struggled with feelings of guilt and helplessness, unable to provide hands-on care. Margaret had to learn the importance of seeking outside help, hiring home care aides to assist with some of the day-to-day responsibilities. She also found a support group for caregivers, where she could share her experiences with others in similar situations, acceptance, and moving forward. As the years went on, Helen's condition worsened. She became nonverbal, unable to recognize her daughter or remember the life they had shared. Margaret, though devastated by this, had come to accept that Alzheimer's was a part of their journey together. She focused on making her mother as comfortable as possible and continued to treasure the memories of the woman Helen used to be. Margaret often reflects on the strength she found during those years of caregiving. She learned to take each day one at a time, to celebrate the small victories, and to let go of the guilt that often accompanies caregiving. Though Alzheimer's took away her mother in many ways, it also taught Margaret lessons of patience, love, and resilience. Here's the second story, The Life of Harold, Living with Lewy Body Dementia. 2. The Life of Harold, Living with Lewy Body Dementia. Harold was once a lively, active man, known for his sharp mind and sense of humor. He had always been someone who kept up with current events, enjoyed puzzles, and loved spending time with his family. But in his late 60s, something started to change. At first, it was subtle, a misstep in his speech, a slight confusion when recalling names, but soon, Harold found himself losing control of his body and mind in ways he never expected. The diagnosis. The turning point came when Harold started to experience vivid hallucinations and fluctuating levels of confusion. One evening, he became agitated, convinced that there were strangers in his house. He described seeing people he didn't recognize, but they seemed so real to him that it was impossible to ignore. These episodes grew more frequent and intense, leading his wife, Linda, to take him to the doctor. After undergoing several tests and evaluations, Harold was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia (LBD), a rare form of dementia that affects the brain's ability to regulate movement, memory, and thinking. It is often characterized by visual hallucinations, cognitive fluctuations, and Parkinson-like motor symptoms. For Harold, the diagnosis was a shock. He had heard of Alzheimer's disease, but Lewy body dementia was unfamiliar to him and his family. The early struggles. In the early stages of his condition, Harold's cognitive abilities fluctuated. Some days, he felt fine, he could recall names, manage basic tasks, and engage in conversations. Other days, his memory was severely impaired. He'd forget the names of close friends or repeat questions, unaware that he'd already asked them. The hallucinations were perhaps the most unsettling aspect. Harold would often see people in the room with him who weren't there at all. One night, he woke up in a panic, believing that a group of children was playing in the hallway. Another time, he was convinced that Linda was someone else entirely, and it took hours of reassurance for him to recognize her again. These hallucinations, combined with his cognitive decline, made it increasingly difficult for Harold to maintain his independence. Simple tasks like brushing his teeth or getting dressed became frustratingly challenging. The tremors in his hands and his stiffness, common symptoms of LBD, made him feel even more helpless. The role of Linda, who had been married to Harold for over 40 years, found herself in the difficult role of caregiver. At first, she tried to manage things on her own, but the severity of Harold's condition soon made it clear that she needed help. She had to adjust her expectations and understand that Harold's behaviors weren't deliberate. He couldn't control the confusion and hallucinations he was experiencing. As a caregiver, Linda also struggled with the emotional toll of watching her husband change in front of her. Harold was no longer the man she married. The vibrant and witty individual she had once known now seemed lost and disoriented. She often felt a sense of grief, mourning the loss of the person he had been, while also trying to keep the connection alive through patience and love. Linda joined a support group for caregivers of individuals with Lewy body dementia, which helped her feel less isolated. She learned coping strategies and was able to share her fears and frustrations with others in similar situations. Though the path was difficult, Linda remained determined to care for Harold and ensure he felt safe and loved. The unpredictability of LBD. One of the most challenging aspects of living with Lewy body dementia was the unpredictability of Harold's symptoms. Some days, he could hold a conversation and even engage in activities like watching movies or gardening. Other days, he would be confused and agitated, not recognizing family members or becoming fixated on bizarre thoughts. On particularly bad days, Harold struggled with severe motor symptoms, making it difficult for him to walk or perform basic movements. The tremors in his hands made it hard to eat, and his stiff limbs made him feel trapped in his own body. These motor difficulties, combined with cognitive fluctuations, made Harold's world feel like it was constantly shifting. The uncertainty of what each day would bring was mentally and emotionally exhausting for both Harold and Linda. Finding moments of joy. Despite the overwhelming challenges, there were moments of joy that kept Harold and Linda going. Music, in particular, had a positive effect on Harold. He had always been a lover of classical music, and even in the later stages of LBD, listening to his favorite pieces would calm him and bring a sense of peace. On good days, Harold would hum along to the tunes, a small but meaningful connection to his past. Family gatherings were also a source of comfort. While Harold's memory of certain events faded, he still recognized his children and grandchildren. His face would light up when they visited, and he could still laugh at old family stories, even if he couldn't always remember the details. These moments helped Linda hold on to the hope that despite the disease, their love for each other remained intact. The final stages. As Harold's condition progressed, he became more dependent on Linda. The hallucinations grew more frequent, and his motor abilities continued to decline. Eventually, Harold was no longer able to care for himself, and Linda made the difficult decision to move him into a specialized care facility that could provide round-the-clock care. Though this decision was heart-wrenching, it allowed Harold to receive the medical attention he needed while also giving Linda some respite. The final stages of Harold's life were marked by a profound sense of loss, but also by deep gratitude for the years they had shared. In his last days, Harold was mostly non-verbal, but Linda held his hand, talking to him as if he could still hear and understand. She knew that, no matter how much time had passed, the bond they shared could never be taken away by dementia. Conclusion. Living with Lewy body dementia was a difficult and often heartbreaking journey for Harold and Linda. But through it all, they found ways to stay connected, to love, and to cherish the moments that remained. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of compassion in the face of profound challenges. Another true story, Sam's struggle with vascular dementia. Sam had always been a man of routine. A retired engineer, he spent his days tinkering with gadgets, working on his garden, and spending time with his beloved wife, Marie. He had a sharp mind, able to solve problems and think logically in ways that impressed everyone around him. But in his early 70s, Marie began to notice subtle changes in Sam's memory and mood. What she initially thought were age-related forgetfulness soon turned out to be symptoms of something much more serious, vascular dementia. The first signs were small. Sam would forget where he left his tools in the garage or have trouble recalling the names of old colleagues. Sometimes he became irritable over things that wouldn't have bothered him before, like a misplaced newspaper or an interruption while watching his favorite TV show. These changes were concerning but not immediately alarming. Marie attributed them to the stress of getting older and the physical ailments that come with age, like high blood pressure. However, as time went on, Sam's symptoms worsened. He started to lose focus during conversations, often interrupting others or repeating the same stories over and over. On one occasion, he forgot how to operate the television remote, which was something he had used daily for years. His mood swings became more severe, and he would often feel depressed or anxious without any clear reason. Marie took him to the doctor, and after a series of tests, including brain scans and cognitive assessments, Sam was diagnosed with vascular dementia, a type of dementia caused by reduced blood flow to the brain, often due to strokes or blockages in the blood vessels. The impact of vascular dementia. Vascular dementia is caused by a series of small strokes or other issues that disrupt blood flow to the brain. The symptoms can vary depending on which part of the brain is affected, but they often include memory loss, confusion, difficulty with problem solving, and changes in mood or behavior. For Sam, the disease manifested in memory lapses, difficulty with planning and decision-making, and a significant change in his personality. Marie was devastated by the diagnosis. Sam had always been independent, and the thought of him losing his cognitive abilities was frightening. She quickly realized that his condition would only worsen, and she had to adjust to a new reality of caregiving. The emotional toll on Marie. Caring for Sam was emotionally exhausting for Marie. She had to learn how to manage not only Sam's memory loss but also his emotional and behavioral changes. He would become agitated over small things, like being unable to recall where he had put his keys. And it was difficult for Marie to remain patient when his frustration turned into anger. The worst part for Marie was seeing Sam, the man she had spent over 40 years with, slowly slip away. The logical, problem-solving engineer she had known was no longer able to perform basic tasks without assistance. At times, Sam would ask her repeatedly the same question or forget how to tie his shoes, which left Marie heartbroken and exhausted. Despite this, Marie remained determined to provide the best care for Sam. She adjusted their routine to accommodate his needs, simplifying tasks and offering extra support when he became confused. She sought out support groups for caregivers of people with vascular dementia, where she could connect with others who understood her struggles and gain helpful tips on managing her own stress. The role of routine and environment. As Sam's condition progressed, Marie learned how important routine and structure were for him. Vascular dementia can be particularly challenging because it leads to cognitive fluctuations, meaning that someone with the disease may have good days and bad days, often without warning. On good days, Sam was still able to do some basic tasks, like reading the newspaper or tending to his garden. On bad days, he could become completely disoriented, unsure of where he was or who he was with. Marie worked hard to maintain a predictable daily schedule for Sam. She kept the house organized and used labels to help him remember where things were. For example, she placed signs near the door and on cabinets that read bathroom or kitchen to remind him of where to go. She also simplified their meals, opting for easy-to-prepare dishes that Sam could help with when he was feeling up to it. Though these changes helped, they couldn't prevent the inevitable decline in Sam's abilities. His memory continued to worsen, and he became more dependent on Marie for everyday tasks, such as bathing, dressing, and eating. Health complications. As Sam's vascular dementia advanced, it brought with it other health complications. He experienced difficulty with walking and balance, making it dangerous for him to move around the house without assistance. At times, he would fall, which resulted in several trips to the emergency room for bruises and sprains. The combination of his dementia and physical limitations made it difficult for Marie to care for him alone. Despite these challenges, Marie continued to ensure Sam's well-being. She arranged for a nurse to come to their home several times a week to assist with his medical needs. She also enlisted the help of a physical therapist who worked with Sam to improve his mobility and reduce his risk of falling. The decision to seek additional care as Sam's condition worsened and his physical health continued to decline. Marie faced the difficult decision of whether or not to move him into a long-term care facility. She had been able to care for him at home for as long as possible, but she realized that the level of care Sam required was beyond what she could provide on her own. Marie felt an overwhelming sense of guilt at the thought of placing Sam in a care facility, but she knew it was the best decision for his safety and comfort. She found a specialized dementia care center that could provide Sam with the round-the-clock attention he needed. The move was a difficult one, but it also gave Marie some much-needed respite. While it was painful to say goodbye to the man she had cared for so lovingly, Marie found comfort in knowing that Sam would receive the best care possible in his new environment. She continued to visit him regularly, often bringing him his favorite snacks or reading aloud to him. Though Sam was no longer the person he had once been, Marie held on to the memories of their life together. The final stages. In the final stages of Sam's vascular dementia, his cognitive and physical abilities diminished significantly. He became largely nonverbal, unable to recognize Marie or their children. Despite the loss, Marie remained by his side, cherishing the moments of connection they still shared, even if it was just sitting together in silence. When Sam passed away, it was a bittersweet relief for Marie. She had lost her companion and best friend, but she also knew that his suffering had come to an end. The years of caregiving had taken a toll on her, but it had also brought her closer to her family and to a deep understanding of the strength that lies in loving someone through their illness. Conclusion. Sam's struggle with vascular dementia was a long and difficult journey for both him and his wife, Marie. The disease took away his cognitive abilities and altered his personality, but it also highlighted the deep love and devotion that Marie had for him. Her story is one of resilience, love, and the difficult but necessary decisions that caregivers must face as they care for a loved one with dementia. Here is the fifth and final story, Linda's Journey with Lewy Body Dementia, written in a detailed comprehension format. 5. Linda's Journey with Lewy Body Dementia Introduction. Linda had always been an energetic woman with a passion for gardening and an unmatched enthusiasm for helping others. A retired nurse, she had spent her career taking care of others and now enjoyed spending her days volunteering at the local community center, organizing charity events, and attending church services. Linda was known for her laughter, her caring nature, and her ability to brighten up any room she entered. But as Linda entered her early 70s, her family began to notice that she was becoming forgetful and displaying strange behaviors. She would forget names and places, often repeating the same stories multiple times during family gatherings. She became easily agitated, especially when her memory failed her. Concerned, her family encouraged Linda to see a doctor. After a series of tests, Linda was diagnosed with Lewy Body Dementia (LBD), a progressive brain disease that affects both cognitive and motor functions. The early symptoms. The early signs of Linda's Lewy Body Dementia were subtle but concerning. At first, she seemed to forget appointments and misplace everyday objects, like her glasses or car keys. She also became confused about the time of day and sometimes struggled to keep track of the sequence of events during conversations. But what stood out the most to her family was her fluctuating state of alertness. Some days, Linda seemed perfectly fine, but other days, she appeared foggy and confused, as if she wasn't quite present. Linda also began to experience visual hallucinations, a hallmark symptom of LBD. She would often talk about seeing people or animals in the room that no one else could see. At first, her family thought she was simply imagining things, but over time, they realized that these hallucinations were a regular occurrence. Linda's behavior became more erratic, and her emotions seemed to swing wildly from joy to sadness without any clear cause. The emotional impact of LBD. The diagnosis of Lewy body dementia came as a shock to Linda and her family. While Linda had always been active and sharp, LBD was starting to take away her ability to think clearly and control her emotions. Linda's family, particularly her daughter, Emma, found the diagnosis difficult to accept. Emma had grown up with a mother who was always there to guide and support her, and now she was witnessing the gradual loss of the woman she had once relied on. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of LBD was Linda's frequent changes in personality. She was no longer the cheerful, optimistic woman she had been. Instead, she would become easily irritated or confused, even over simple things. Sometimes, she would not recognize her own children or grandchildren, and when they would visit, she would look at them with confusion, wondering who they were. Emma tried her best to remain patient and understanding, but there were days when the emotional toll of caring for Linda was overwhelming. She found herself grieving the mother she had lost, even as she tried to provide care and support for the mother who was still there, albeit in a changed form. Managing the physical and cognitive symptoms as Linda's condition progressed, the cognitive and motor symptoms of LBD became more pronounced. Linda's memory continued to decline, and she began to have difficulty with basic tasks, such as dressing herself or preparing meals. She would often forget what she had just done or become disoriented in the middle of a task. In addition to the cognitive challenges, Linda began to experience significant motor problems, including tremors, rigidity, and difficulty with balance. Walking became more difficult, and she often had to rely on a walker for support. The combination of cognitive and motor symptoms meant that Linda required increasing amounts of assistance with daily activities. Emma, along with the help of Linda's husband, James, worked together to ensure that Linda was safe and comfortable. They made their home more accessible by installing grab bars in the bathroom, using easy-to-grip utensils, and placing furniture in a way that minimized the risk of falls. Despite the challenges, Linda's family remained determined to support her. They encouraged her to participate in physical therapy to maintain her mobility for as long as possible. Emma also sought advice from a team of healthcare professionals to help manage Linda's symptoms, which included medications to address both cognitive and motor issues. Linda was also prescribed medications to manage the hallucinations, although they did not fully eliminate the visions. The role of routine and social support. Linda's family soon realized that maintaining a consistent routine was essential for her well-being. People with Lewy body dementia often experience fluctuations in their cognitive abilities, and the uncertainty of these changes could be distressing. By keeping Linda's days predictable, with regular meal times and a familiar schedule, Emma found that Linda was less anxious and better able to cope with the challenges of her illness. Social support also played a critical role in Linda's life. Despite her cognitive decline, she still enjoyed socializing, particularly with her church community and close friends. Emma made sure to keep Linda engaged in social activities, even if it meant making modifications to ensure she felt comfortable. Linda continued to attend church services, and Emma would stay by her side to help her navigate the crowds and assist with any confusion that arose. The family also encouraged Linda to participate in hobbies that she had always enjoyed, like gardening. Though her coordination was affected, Linda still found joy in planting flowers and tending to her small garden. These familiar activities brought her moments of peace, and her family was happy to see her enjoying something that connected her to the person she had once been. Coping with the hallucinations. One of the most challenging symptoms of Lewy body dementia was Linda's frequent visual hallucinations. She would sometimes talk about seeing animals, like a dog sitting at the foot of her bed, or people who were not there. These hallucinations would sometimes frighten Linda, and she would ask her family for reassurance that what she was seeing wasn't real. Emma found that the best way to cope with these hallucinations was to remain calm and acknowledge Linda's experience without validating the hallucinations themselves. For example, when Linda would mention seeing someone in the room, Emma would reassure her by saying, "I don't see them, but I'm here with you," offering comfort without dismissing Linda's feelings. It wasn't always easy, but Emma learned that a calm and reassuring approach helped Linda feel more secure in her reality, even if that reality was different from the one Emma shared. The final stages. As Linda's condition progressed into the later stages of Lewy body dementia, her cognitive and physical decline became more profound. She became unable to communicate clearly and required help with almost every aspect of her daily life. Linda's ability to walk deteriorated, and she needed assistance with feeding, dressing, and personal care. In her final months, Linda's family made the difficult decision to transition her to a hospice care facility where she could receive the specialized care she needed. Though it was heartbreaking to let go, Emma and James knew that Linda's needs were beyond what they could provide at home. The hospice team worked closely with the family to ensure that Linda was comfortable and well cared for during her final days. Linda passed away peacefully, surrounded by her family. Though her death brought relief from her suffering, it was also a profound loss for those who had loved her. Emma and James took comfort in the knowledge that they had done everything they could to support Linda during her battle with Lewy body dementia. They held on to the memories of the vibrant, caring woman she had been, cherishing the moments of connection they had shared in the years before the disease took hold. Conclusion: Linda's journey with Lewy body dementia was a difficult one for both her and her family. The disease took away her cognitive abilities, her motor skills, and her independence, but it also brought her family closer together. Emma's dedication to her mother, despite the challenges and emotional toll of caregiving, is a testament to the strength of familial love and support. While Linda's battle with LBD was long and painful, her family will always remember her for the joy and kindness she brought into their lives. That concludes today's video. See you on our next video, and take great care of yourselves and your loved ones.